Hey, I'm Nate. He's Brandon. This is the St. Louis Syndicate, and we're here to talk about the college football playoff bracket. This week, Brandon, we had not only an amazing election night victory, but we had an amazing election night college football playoff bracket projected for the very first time. Uh,
Absolutely.
Funny, I was listening back and forth. I flipped over to this during the election results, and Joey Galloway was saying, "Now it's just the first week. Don't get all worked up." That's what Kirk Herbstreit was saying. I'm like, yeah, that's probably true, but hey, there's a lot of good stuff out here to talk about. What do you like? What do you don't like? Who are the favorites? What the impact games are this week? Um, Before we get into that, though, I want to kind of try to explain a little bit of what we're seeing here and what this looks like in case you don't know and you're watching us for the first time. What we're looking at here is our college football playoff projected bracket. And you see a team like ninth ranked BYU sitting in the four spot. That may feel a little odd, but basically, the four highest ranked conference champions get the four buys. And then the fifth conference champion is guaranteed to make a playoff spot. In this particular instance, that would be Boise State, who is the 12th ranked team, getting into the 12th ranked spot. And so this is of all the conferences. So traditionally, we think the Power Four are going to always have a bye, right? Big 12, Big 10, SEC, ACC. And that's how it lined up right now, but that's not always how it could be. If we have a team like Boise work its way up into the top four or five, they could get a potential bye, and you could see an SEC or a Big 12 school fall down and get that 12 seed. The interesting part is that's ensuring five conference champions actually get into the playoff, and so it's kind of exciting. Now, after that explanation, how do you feel about kind of where we're sitting now with the bracket, maybe starting with BYU and Boise State and working our way down?
Yeah, I love to see some of these non-traditional schools getting some shine. BYU, I've seen a reasonable number of their games, and it's fun to watch. They don't have the pedigree of Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia and whatnot, but they seem like they have an identity and they're going out there and they're doing their job. And to see them and Indiana up in the top 12 is just exciting. I am pumped to see who gets in on this back half of the 12 that normally just end up going to some bowl game that maybe their players care about, maybe they don't, and now we're playing for something.
Okay, so I 100% agree with you on everything you said except the BYU pedigree. And here's where I go with that. I'm going to give you Ohio State, okay?
Sure.
I'm going to name three quarterbacks. You name three quarterbacks that are equal or better. Steve Young, Jim McMahon, Ty Detmer. Your turn, go.
No, I got you. But when did the most recent one of those three graduate from college?
Well, it's been a while, right? I mean, we're talking.
So yeah, and that's kind of the point I was making, that like there's a lot of these schools that have had serious pedigrees over the years,
Absolutely.
and they've just been shut out of this. Hey, we're only taking two or four players, or teams, and moving into playing for these big prizes. And now you can go, hey, we can get these teams that haven't been in a playoff for a while and get them in here and see if they can play it over their heads and
Oh,
knock somebody off.
absolutely. I think it's cool, and I was just giving you shit about the BYU thing, but I
Oh
think it's
no, but that's a
fun
good
to.
call.
That is really
Because
cool
I
to be able to have college football that does those kind of things.
Oh
It
yeah.
just makes it very entertaining to say the least. Sorry to scare my dog off. Um,
Sure.
So, taking a look here, one of the things I'm very excited about is Indiana showing a very strong path into this. I think Tennessee is a tough matchup for them. I think that would be an awesome game to watch. And the winner of that going into Oregon, which feels like not a very good situation for either of those teams. But Indiana's finally getting a little due respect, and I'm glad to see the committee give them that.
No, but here's the fun, right? If Oregon stumbles,
Yeah.
which, I've been rooting for going on 10 weeks, Indiana is right there
Oh, yeah.
and would have a shot to win the conference
Oh, yeah.
and end up with a bye. If they can let Ohio State and Oregon and Penn State, take a loss in here and then get lucky, obviously, playing over their head in a conference championship game.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Playing for their chance to get a bye week. That makes the conference championship games even that much more important.
Oh, absolutely agree with that. That's such true. So I think it's interesting. You just rattled off four teams, right? Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, and Penn State. Um, Fairly even breakdown. Four Big Ten schools make the playoff. Um, we've got Georgia with Texas and Alabama, and Tennessee sitting out there. Four SEC schools. Notre Dame as our independent, and then the rest rounded out with ACC, Big 12, and I believe Boise's Mountain. And so
Mountain, yeah, Mountain
still,
West.
ultimately, a pretty good balance. We talked at the very beginning of this year, our first podcast, we said, can five SEC schools make it in? And looking at this, my thought process is probably that won't happen very often, if ever, to have one conference with five schools in it. Which means
They
there's going
sure
to be some.
could, though.
They could, but there's some important games that are going to come up for LSU, Old Miss, um,
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. I mean, they're right there banging on the edge, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna be pretty interesting to see how this plays out.
But you're
Um,
right that like probably because of having to get wins off of each other, we end up in a position where the fifth team doesn't have enough powerful wins to overpower an at-large bid basically
yeah,
of a team in one of the lesser conferences just going off.
for sure. Which, you know, but it means makes every game mean more. Now the college football has always meant a lot, right? I mean, for the longest time, if you had one loss, you were out. You couldn't get in.
Right.
So, the purists will argue that, well, that was real. Undefeated champions, blah blah blah. But
Sure.
I look at a Week 11 game, and I think there is significant impact sitting right out there with Alabama and LSU. The game this week, LSU wins, Alabama's out. They go to three losses. They're not getting there.
Yeah.
LSU is got one life to live, and that's beating Alabama. And if they lose, they're not going to breathe it. This is a college playoff elimination game in Week 11. The loser of that game is not going to make the 12, in my opinion. I just don't think they can. So that's a playoff game. And if those coaches aren't talking to the players about that and bringing their absolute A game, then I don't know what these coaches are doing.
Yeah, that's pretty fair argument there. Because let's be honest, like right now, the way that it sits in the standings, Bama is eighth in the SEC,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and staring up at, you know, some pretty crazy teams, to still be ranked 11. And so, that's kind of, you know, off the back of the house that Saban built sort of thing. And, you put them into a playoff and they're going to be a problem for most teams. But if they can't get through a night game at LSU, that they deserve to go. You guys just go ahead and sit down for a year
Yeah,
and see if you can regroup yourselves.
totally agree. I think it's do or die. I love it. Right, Week 11, do or
Yeah,
die. We're not even to Thanksgiving yet, and one of the premier programs in the country is eliminated. Um,
Yeah,
Arguing then that the Georgia Ole Miss game is maybe not do or die for Georgia, but it is for Ole Miss.
for
Um,
sure.
Ole Miss is hanging on alive, and will fall into if Ole Miss could beat Georgia. That is going to put a significant group of SEC schools with two losses. That's going to put teams like Tennessee and Texas with one loss sitting up there in a really good spot. It's just fascinating to me how these games in Week 11 are going to start playing out. Um, even the Michigan Indiana one. One trip up, Michigan, the defending national champion, beats Indiana this week.
Yeah,
Indiana's out. I don't think
yeah.
they're going to recover from that. I mean,
They just don't have the strength of schedule to do anything. Like
they
you got to be
they
perfect.
can. They're a good team. They're good kids. They got a great coach, but
Uh huh.
they they have to almost be perfect to make this work.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I
that
think
is,
they could lose in the conference championship and probably still get in.
yeah, probably so.
Um,
Maybe
but if they lose any
depends
of
on
these
how high
regular
they
season
get.
games, that's probably the end of it.
Yeah, if they lost in the conference championship, that means they're going to be ranked in the top four.
Probably.
Because you look, I mean, Oregon, Ohio State are
I
one,
mean, you
two.
still.
Penn State
I
six.
mean, probably not though. But think about their strength of schedule. I think that they're. I bet six is as high as they can get.
I don't think they can get any higher than that. I agree, but even
Yeah.
then, if they're at six and losing the conference championship, they may miss it because of the independent and the guaranteed fifth.
They could. I think that, these, or at least historically, right? These conference title games, the the voters have kind of given teams a little bit of wiggle room. That like, hey, you guys are playing this extra game for the, love of the sport. Um, if it's a good game, okay, maybe both of you guys should go through.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how they handle it, and maybe they just end up down. These top teams that lose because you get the same thing in the SEC. Like we're gonna play a conference championship game, and some very good team is gonna take a loss right at the end of the season,
Yep.
and they're gonna have to make a decision of, hey, do you are you gonna be one of those 10, 11, 12 ranked teams, or do we think that it's not worth it? So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that gives them, an upside to not getting to dodge the conference championship game. You have somebody like Penn State that, you lose and you lose pretty bad.
Yeah.
Um, and you go, okay, well, we're not going to play in that championship game now. So we're not going to have to take a second loss. If we can just win out, we'll be a one-loss team.
That's right.
But we
That's a
didn't even
big
get
deal.
we didn't even have to stare down the barrel of the other best team in our conference. So it'll be interesting to see how they work that out now that they've got 12 slots.
Yeah, that's gonna be really up to the committee, and we're gonna have to put faith in the committee that they get that right. I think what's going to be interesting with that is going to be, um, you know, where does Penn State's ranked really high, but there could be some other teams out there that are have very interesting records as we get closer to the end here, like SMU, like Iowa State, like Kansas State, Washington State. I mean, Bill said the other day, I think he texted us and said Washington State was going
Hmm.
to win the whole thing. So, with that going on, how does that play out with Penn State, especially if they are not playing the conference championship game, took a horrible loss, and just kind of eke out and win out? Does it become style points? And if we're talking style points, Indiana's got those. They're beating teams by
Yeah.
40 and 50.
Yeah, especially if they keep doing it.
Yeah.
You run through the tape and you do get a little bit of a push upward for the style points, even though you're getting drugged down by your strength schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the college football landscape is as fun as it's ever been. We were talking about it earlier. I'm excited to see how this plays out. I'm going to look forward to talking about it every week, and
Yes.
we're going to see how it goes. As far as gambling goes, definitely this should be a gambling podcast, but we're going to kind of adjust it here towards the end as we get into the bracket and talk about who should be in, who should be out, and kind of go from there.
Yeah.
So, good luck with your picks this week. Let us know if you like this format, and if not, we'll make an adjustment. And if you do love it, we'll keep it up. I'm Nate. He's Brandon.
Good luck, everybody.